we're stuck on a blue and green ball in the middle of nowhere. No one knows what the F is up, right?
Yeah.
Hello, welcome to another episode of Sippin Cosmos. I'm your resident spiritual nerd, Ashley.
I'm your skeptic, Layne.
And I'm somewhere in between. I am Sarah.
Today we have Danielle Beinstein in the house with us. Welcome, Danielle.
Thank you so much for having me.
You're an astrologist.
Astrologer, yeah. I guess astrologist people, I've just never heard anyone say
Astrologer.
Astrologer, yeah.
Okay.
I'm a psychological and intuitive counselor, but the lens through which, I perceive the world and not entirely perceive the world. I see that through multiple lenses, but that's a way that I access my clients and kind of help guide them is through astrology. But I'm not a believer that it's the only thing. I think we need multiple tools, and so I bring different tools into helping my clients.
I love that. What are some of the other tools that you...
Inner child healing, kind of a deep kind of dive into the subconscious, the noticing the limiting patterns that we hold. But a big part of my work is inner child work. And I've just found that astrology is a really profound... it's kind of a profound window into the human psyche.
Interesting. So I want to learn a little bit more about astrology because, so what would you define astrology as? Is there any astronomical actual science backing it up, or is it just about zodiac signs and stars and planets where they are in the sky when you're born?
It's that. So your natal chart is a snapshot of the sky the moment you were born. And the way that I think of it is that when we draw our first breath, we take in the energy, right? So in order to believe in astrology, you have to believe in the unseen forces, right? So we know that the tides are affected by the moon. It's the same thing. We are made up of energy. That's why babies born during, major historical events kind of carry that energy within them throughout their lives, because everything is energy. If we choose to see it that way, or if we acknowledge that that's really what it is, right? So I believe that we carry that imprint, but it's the cards that we're dealt. We then have to play the cards, and that's where the free will comes in.
It's like, it's just a blueprint of this is kind of the energy that you took on in this world.
It's the raw data, right? So for example, you can liken it to... working out, right? So there may be dormant muscles in your body, but they're there. So the greater knowledge you have of your body and of the fascia and of the muscles, the more able you're going to be able to use them and grow them.
So it's more like dormant energy.
Yes, but some energy we default to more readily, and that's often apparent in the natal chart. So I look at that, and then I look at transits, which is what is happening in the sky currently, and then how that is affecting the native. And then on top of that, I'll look at something called a progress chart, which is a day to year to conversion. So for every year that we live, our chart looks like it would a day after we're born. So that's how our chart evolves. When people say that our chart evolves, that's that. Then I'll look at astrocartography, so how our energy plays with different places around the world. That I always say take with a grain of salt, but it's eerily accurate.
Right. When I think of astrology, I always think of the zodiac signs,
Yeah.
And those are set dates. There's like a few weeks for each sign. And what I never understood is that because like the earth and sun are always changing places, why someone born like 50 years ago would be an Aries if they were born in late March, and I'm an Aries born in the 90s, the same dates. So can you kind of touch on that?
So when you're looking at a natal chart, the sun is actually just a small part of it. It's the core essence. But a natal chart looks like a wheel, a 360-degree wheel.
Oh, mine's right here.
You have yours?
Yes.
And it's divided into what are called 12 houses, which kind of look like pie slices. And then there are 10 main celestial bodies peppered throughout. You have the sun and the moon, which are the luminaries. And then you have the inner planets, which is Mercury, Venus, Mars. Then you have the outer planets, right, which is Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, Neptune, Pluto. And so it's how those all interplay. So saying you're an Aries, as an example, is just a very small piece of the pie. So when I read a client's chart, they may have an Aries sun, but I say, no, you're actually incredibly introverted and actually you're going to be more shy or more kind of people-pleasing than an average
And that's
Aries,
where the
because
rising and the moon signs come, right?
that's just a piece of it.
That's another small piece.
Yes. The rising sign is the kind of horizon line. And so it's the energy we present to the world, right? It's kind of like our conditioned mask. And what I see very often in adoptive children, in addition to biological children, is that the rising sign often mirrors one of the major elements of one of the parents' chart, because we learn how to be in the world from our parent. The moon is our emotional landscape, but then all those other planets that I mentioned all have a significant impact on our energetic makeup.
Interesting.
Where did these attributes, like for personality or whatever, where did they come from?
I mean, astrology, if we want to say it was invented, it was in ancient Babylonia.
Okay,
right?
I was going to say, is it Greek mythology?
Yeah, it's ancient Babylonia.
It's like BC.
Yeah, but there's references to it in the Torah. So there's a link there as well. And it's a great question. And to be honest, it's not one that I can say, oh, here's where it came from. Yeah, I mean, the constellations, right, have imagery. And so there's a kind of connection there. But it is bizarre to me, even to this day. I've worked with thousands of clients, how accurate it is. But you have to be able to read a chart appropriately, because if you're just looking at the small details, you're looking at it piecemeal. And no human being is these kind of piecemeal elements. We're a whole human with different aspects and seemingly contradictory personality traits.
Right.
So
do you kind of like laugh at those like magazine horoscopes that you get when they're like Cosmopolitan?
Because
they're kind of bullshit in the way.
They're completely bullshit. And here's the thing: is that we live in a consumerist society. So in order for things to sell, they have to be reduced, right, to the most simplest terms. And so a lot of that is just kind of appealing to the masses, but it's not. It's much more layered and complex than that. Just like you wouldn't get a medical opinion from the back of a magazine.
Yeah,
I mean,
that's
we
true.
do. We Google it, but it's then we all think we're having a heart attack all the time.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Well,
Same
MD
exact
is
thing.
Dangerous.
Right. So people will. I say that I have kind of astrological trauma victims, because they come to me and they're like, oh my God. Someone told me, or I read, I looked at Google, and this means that I'm only going to be attracted to cheaters and I'm screwed. And it's like, no. Just like you're not having the heart attack because you have some heartburn, most likely. So it's we human beings, we crave certainty. Mm-hmm. And there is none.
So Danielle, you go to medical school to become a doctor, but how'd you become an astrologer?
Actually, I'm self-taught.
Wow.
I started studying when I was 19. I had a very rigorous academic education, and I was always just the biggest book nerd, right, ever. And
you studied philosophy at NYU?
Yeah. I created my own major in philosophy,
That's
literature,
really cool.
and humanities. And I started studying it in college by myself. And then I kept having my first job at Scholastic. My boss was really into astrology. I kept meeting older people who were kind of professional in it. And then when I was getting my master's in spiritual psychology, where they don't cover astrology, but kind of found a mentor there who is a working astrologer who's 3 decades older than me. And so she like kind of gave me the stamp, and she was like, you have to go do this.
Cool.
What is spiritual psychology exactly?
So spiritual psychology, instead of kind of the Freudian perspective, it looks at the soul journey, right? So the root of psyche is actually soul, breath. Mm-hmm. But we've divorced that in our modern world. And so it looks at the psyche through the perspective of the spiritual journey, the soul having a human experience. So instead of things becoming pathological, like you have this diagnosis, this is the DSM handbook, this is what you have, seeing everything as if the soul is whole and the human, whatever ailment is there, whatever shows up, is a kind of separation from the wholeness. And then there's the perspective of just forgiveness, non-judgment, acceptance, so kind of spiritual tenets.
And is that like chakra based? Like, is that where you study the chakras?
Yes,
and
I actually did.
imbalances?
So the third year is consciousness, health, and healing, and that focused almost entirely on the chakra system.
Sarah and I just did a healing session with our good friend who's into sound healing and Reiki. it was really interesting. She used sound and instruments that have vibrational fields, and I don't know, it was really relaxing, meditative.
Well, the way, I learned it and I was taught is more the mind, soul, body connection. So the idea that if you have an ailment or dis-ease, you look at where in the body that is, and it's kind of a biofeedback. Your body is revealing a deeper kind of psychological element. It's not that we are responsible for our illness, because that gets very confused, but more that it's a deeper window into what our body is trying to communicate to us. So, for example, if we're getting a lot of sore throats, for example, this is the throat chakra, right? And so not only is this about deep listening and speaking one's truth, but it's also surrendering personal will to divine will, getting out of your own way. So you know that feeling of like something stuck in your throat, you can't get it out, you can't speak your truth. You may develop an ailment there, a sore throat, that kind of thing. That's a very kind of surface, but that's also chakra work. That's the deeper chakra work.
I'm totally open to that. But as a skeptic, I come back to, if you have a sore throat, maybe you're sick. Maybe there's something biologically wrong with you.
It's not that it's not that. It's not an either or. We tend to live in a binary world, but it's not.
Right.
It's like the physical ailment could be there, and you could be at a place of absolute transcendence, and your body could still fail you.
I suppose I don't know if there's not something wrong with my chakra, because I would
you're not connected to it.
Well, I would have no way of knowing, is the thing I'm saying.
Right.
There's no empirical evidence is my thing.
But that's where the faith piece comes in.
Right.
Right?
You have to have faith, obviously, to believe in it.
Yeah. And also just recognize that your body is made up of energy.
For sure.
And it's related to your mind. We tend to see everything through the mental state, especially in our world. Right? And our culture, by and large, with, walking around with our just everything neck up.
Yeah.
So it's like embodiment. It's like feeling the fullness and wholeness.
And I'm a big energy person, so I could get behind that portion of that for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. But it's not saying don't go to the doctor if you need surgery. It's not saying don't go get surgery. It's just looking at it holistically, right? Especially in allopathic medicine, we tend to look directly at like what's the symptom. So this is like a deeper, well, let's look at, I work with a craniosacral practitioner a lot, and they can kind of tune in to where, like, for example, I may be having pain in my shoulder, but actually it's the core of the pain is actually coming from a different part of my body.
Right.
Like, Chinese medicine.
Exactly.
Yeah.
All of that. And so I tend to lean towards that more than just, I'm going to go to the doctor, they're going to give me a pill.
Right. Have you healed someone just through spiritual?
I don't claim to do that.
Cool.
No, I don't. I hold the space for people to heal themselves. My work is really more about the psychological and emotional, but I will guide people.
And I respect that you don't claim to do that, because
no.
that would almost be impossible, probably.
It is, and I think that I would never claim to replace an individual's own relationship to God, to their own journey. I just try to hold a unconditionally loving, neutral place for people to explore their journey.
Cool.
And you said on your website that you studied consciousness and that sort of...
That was the third year.
Okay.
Relating to how we show up in the world.
Do you believe there's like a collective consciousness that we're all kind of a part of, that some of us have awakened to, some of us haven't, and we kind of just live our menial lives? And what is kind of your take on consciousness?
Well, there's kind of like Maslow's hierarchy of needs, right? So if you're in survival mode, it's really hard or challenging to be in that higher consciousness state. One isn't better or worse than another, right? It's just, and by the way, one could have very little money in their bank, but actually be of a higher consciousness, and one could have billions of dollars or hundreds of millions of dollars and be at a very low consciousness.
Well, right, because money is just a man-made concept that we've just run our society on, but it really has nothing to do with...
Exactly. And you meet, janitors, nurses, and they feel transcendent. And you're like, oh, you're a higher being. You're just an elevated consciousness. But yes, and I think astrology speaks to that. Astrology speaks to the kind of collective consciousness, and then it's how we relate to it as individuals. If you get a parking ticket on 2 totally different days, one day you get a parking ticket and you're like, fuck this. And you're sewing in it, and a week later or whatever. I mean, I hope you're not getting parking tickets that often. But another time you get a parking ticket.
I'm a very good parker.
Don't put that out into the energy, Danielle.
And you're happy. You know what I mean? You're like, what's the big deal? So we have a kind of consciousness, and it's not the thing outside of us. We live in a culture where we think, if I get that car, if I get that person, not that you can ever acquire a person, but if you're dating that person, if you purchase that thing, if you lose that weight, whatever, then you will be happy, right? But everything is inside of us.
Yeah.
And so it's how we relate to levels of consciousness.
Right.
And, we're also in an age where it's very kind of cool to be outraged all the time and to be angry all the time. And it's pulling us further and further from one another.
Well, I think it's all about zooming out, right? Like if you're living your life, you're only worried about, what you're going to do, how much money you're going to make, whatever. You're just in, it's kind of like that first level, like survival rate.
Yeah.
And then if you're able to zoom out and just be happy, grateful for what you have, see your tiny piece in the big picture of, like you don't care as much about that stuff.
You don't sweat the small stuff.
Exactly.
Yes. But even that is binary thinking, right? Because you still have to pay your taxes, right? You still have
to live in this reality.
Those do suck.
You still have to go to the dentist. You still have to, you know what I mean? You still have to take care of yourself. So you can't lose touch with the mundane.
Right.
I'm very grounded in my perspective. It's the New Yorker in me, right? Very grounded in my perspective. But the more you can kind of gain awareness, why am I feeling insecure after walking away from that person? Why did I respond so urgently to that text? We start to learn about ourselves and gain consciousness around our patterning. And we start to say, what are my deeper triggers? Why every time I'm around, Aunt Susie, I don't have an Aunt Susie, but I feel so activated. Like, what is happening there? Without saying it's Aunt Susie's fault, it's like, what inside of me feels defensive? What inside of me feels unsafe? And how can I utilize that to learn more about myself, so that I can show up in the world as the fullest expression of myself.
Be the best version.
Yeah. But it's not like zoom out all the time. I mean, you could do that, but then you're kind of going to live a monkish life, right?
Right.
And if you're just always in the mundane, then there's no, we need purpose and meaning as human beings. We're stuck on a blue and green ball in the middle of nowhere. No one knows what the F is up, right?
Yeah.
So we need some kind of what is my purpose and meaning? And a lot of what's happening in the kind of collective right now is we don't know where we're deriving meaning. And a lot of what we're deriving meaning from is actually rooted in anger. It's not rooted in what we want.
Monetary gain, fame, success.
Yes.
These things, it's kind of gearing us away from a spiritual
Or like you
growth.
said, just being angry for fun. Sometimes I do that.
Yeah. And it's just, that to me is like, oh, right. Our nervous systems are fried. And even though we've had the pandemic and, a lot of people really struggled during the pandemic. Some people did amazingly well, but a lot of people struggled. Their nervous systems, our nervous systems are constant stimulation, are just overtaxed. And when that happens, our minds get really activated. We're not grounded. You'll rarely find someone who's grounded in their body and centered.
I hear people talk about Mercury in retrograde all the time. Can you please explain?
Yeah,
what is Mercury in retrograde?
What is that?
Why is that such a big deal to so many people?
Okay, so Mercury is the planet of communication, named after the winged messenger, right? So communication, thought, mental processing. When it's retrograde, it has the illusion of moving backwards. So it's kind of tracing over the degree points. And so it feels like it's going backwards. So it feels like things are kind of haywire because it rules communications or kind of in some ways legal contracts or that kind of thing, people feel like that goes haywire.
Yeah. Everyone says don't sign contracts when Mercury's in retrograde. I'm like, okay, I'll try.
But here's the thing with retrogrades is that, and I really genuinely believe this, is that there are periods of time where we can kind of see past the veil.
Yeah.
So I find that strangely people come back into my life, or I run into people, or sometimes something feels like it's almost magically fated.
Yeah.
Like, for example, I've said to clients, like, if you have an amazing apartment that comes, or a house that comes forward during Mercury retrograde, just make sure you get it inspected, like really inspected.
Due diligence.
Just be extra careful. I had a client, she found an apartment. She thought she loved the apartment. During Mercury retrograde, I said, listen, just make sure you get it inspected. Make sure you hire a fantastic inspector. They found all these things, and she's like, I didn't go through with it. After Mercury retrograde, she found her dream apartment, Wow. So, but I always say take it with a grain of salt. I met my partner the day Venus went retrograde.
Interesting.
So how
I
come
wasn't
no
going to
one
not date him.
How come no one says Venus in retrograde?
Because that happens much more rarely.
It's infrequent.
Sorry, Mercury retrograde goes retrograde 3, sometimes 4 times a year.
Right.
Where
It's
Venus, it's going to be like every 18 months to 2 years.
Okay.
Gotcha.
So it's more rare. We have one coming up in December in Capricorn.
Oh boy.
Do people lump you in with like psychics or mediums? Do you ever experience that?
Yeah.
Or okay.
And I'm like, I'm not that. I mean, one of the first things I say when I'm on with a client is, I'm not psychic. I don't purport to be psychic. I'm reading the energy of your chart, but more than anything, I'm holding an unconditionally loving space for you as you process where you are in your journey, so it's much more therapeutic.
Why do you think people just lump all that together? Because it's unknown, because it seems very,
Because I think a lot of astrologers out there and historically were heavily predictive. So it's linked to psychic energy, they're going to tell me that this is going to happen.
And people just think back to the magazine horoscopes.
Yeah.
When you think of astrologer, that's what most people think about.
Yeah.
Or did. I feel like everything's been changing
things
over the
are
past
changing,
decade.
yeah.
But yes, 100%.
The layperson
Yes.
might think about that,
Yeah.
It still comes up in my mind when I think about it,
Yeah.
for sure.
Yeah.
Aren't there some predictive
There
things
are.
about astrology?
There
though?
are. For example,
Like cycles, 7-year cycles, stuff
all
like
of that. But you can't possibly say this is going to happen to you. You
'Cause
can say
there's
there's
free
going to be
will.
an energetic opportunity, but I don't like to do too much of that, and I use really neutral language because self-fulfilling prophecy, right? So if someone says to you, your partner has, dark brown hair and, green eyes, and they're going to wear I don't know, a necklace with a fairy on it, and you're like, you meet someone else that you like, and their necklace has a star on it. You're like, that's not my partner, and I've literally had this happen to people, and they're freaking out, and I'm like,
oh my God.
no. So I'm not going to tell you.
People take things so literally.
That's why I can't get behind psychics, Ashley.
Okay.
I do think.
Shots
Like,
fired.
okay.
Well, Ashley loves psychics. I feel like a lot of psychics do try to,
I don't love psychics, but
predict things like that.
I'm intrigued by the mystical world.
Some people, I believe, are a direct channel. I think it's very rare, and I've actually, because people will say, "Can you recommend?" And I say, as soon as I find someone that I actually think is excellent.
Please let us know.
Yeah, I always say that because I have a couple names that I got actually recently, and people were like, I'm telling you. But I actually am not. The thing that drives me the most is engagement in the mystery. I'm less interested, just on a personal level, to know. Because to me, I want to go on the journey. And I want to my intention always is, how can I open my heart more? How can I be more present to whatever the learning is? I know my time on this planet is limited, and I'm not as interested in having it mapped out.
Well, there certainly
world
are things that we
can't,
can't comprehend that are going on that
Here's an
are
example.
beyond our comprehension.
And that's a good point. It's like you're limited, and know you're limited. So why are you going to limit the universe to your limitations. It doesn't make sense.
Are you talking to me?
Yeah.
No, I agree
No,
with that.
I know there are things that I can't comprehend, but I accept that I can't comprehend them.
So you
Here's an
don't
example.
even wonder or want to?
I wonder, but I
to
feel like
reach-
it's hard to it's hard to live your life just pretending. I don't know what I'm trying to say.
When I was 19, my dad took me on safari in Africa. It was a life-changing event
awesome.
because when I was little, my mom said, I come from a very kind of scientifically minded, kind of agnostic background. And my mom, I grew up in New York City. My mom would take me to museums all the time, and she would take me to the Museum of Natural History. My mother has always had a deep admiration and profound respect for the Native American culture. She just has. I remember when I was like, I remember being like 4, my mom being like, they had it right. We just came in and fucked everything up. I don't think that's true, but like,
They did.
but that's like, that was, that's what she would say to me. But she jokes that like we would travel through the museum, and I was like, I lived during that period. I was like, as a small child. And then I grew up in Manhattan, and I kind of was like, no, I'm an atheist and there's no God. And my dad took me on safari and with my older sister, and we were on safari, and I remember just looking. We were in a game drive, and I remember looking out, and I remember there was a rhinoceros and a giraffe, and the guide had said that the giraffe's height alerts the other animals to a lion pride that might be coming, and actually I believe it was the rhinoceroses, they're actually speaking but you can't hear it. And I was like, oh, there's just no way there's not this is perfection. Like, it's perfect, right?
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't mean that the lion isn't gonna ravage the hyena and eat it, or the warthog. It just means like there is a kind of perfection here, and we're not separate from that perfection. Our mind is separate from that perfection. Our mind gets in the way, but
we're a part of that.
part of the kind of just I will forever, until I leave this earth, be awed that human beings make other human beings.
Yeah.
Like, it's just mesmerizing.
It's wild.
Like, there's no, you can have the scientific explanation, but even like fertility doctors can't wrap their head around why some people get pregnant even though they're told they can. And then other people, it's like fertility is so mystical. Like the kind of life itself is mystical.
Pregnancy has always just freaked me out. Like, I'm
Right.
just in awe of
It's
like that
wild.
something is in
Yeah.
someone's stomach, and it's life, and it's I agree. It's really
Someone
just
made a
mind-blowing.
TikTok the other day, this girl, and she was like, I have literally a portal between my legs
Yes.
that brings souls into this universe. And I was just like,
Whoa.
oh my God.
But
That
that's
is an interesting way of
yeah,
looking at it.
I used to like stare at pregnant women when I was little.
Really?
it's
I couldn't
mesmerizing.
You would.
Yeah.
I know.
It's a classic little Ashley
I
thing to
grew
do.
up and I realized that wasn't polite.
Wow.
Actually, stop staring.
I think one time my aunt was like really freaked out, and I was just like, cannot compute.
Yeah. And I try my intention, and believe me, my partner would be like, yeah, not all the time. But I try to live with that level of reverence. Because I think we can choose cynicism or we can choose awe. And I think to be in continual awe. And like also, humans have caused a lot of destruction. Humans have created incredible works of art, right? Like there's just
For all the evil and terrible, there's so much
and
beauty.
it's a mixed bag. Humans were a mixed bag, but like I just, so I think about that and I think there's something else going on.
Right.
There's just something else going on. I mean, I
Yeah.
believe that at my core, and that's my work, but yeah.
What I was trying to say before is like, I'm not going to waste my time thinking about every possibility and making things up for why certain things are. But it is interesting to be creative and go down that route, of course.
I agree. I think there's a freedom in just accepting that we're probably not going to know and just like enjoying your time here.
Yeah, that's
And
my mindset.
Yeah, and like
But also,
all the respect in the world to
I love
people.
being creative and thinking that way, and
But
coming
it's
up
not
with
just
different
making it up out of thin air, though. Is what I'm not. Like, you're acting like it's like made up out of thin air.
That's not what I'm saying exactly, but
Trying to figure out all the answers. I get what you're saying.
Right. I'm not trying to figure out all the answers or come up with different, I don't know, mystical ways for why things are. That's just how the way I am.
Are you self-investigative? Like, do you look at your character traits or the way you show up in relationship or your communication style or, you know, how you respond?
I don't do enough of that.
Yeah. Because that to me is the essence of the journey, you know? Not navel gazing to the point where you're not present, but to learn more about, because the more you understand your own patterning, the more empathy and forgiveness you have for others.
Right.
See, I do a lot of that.
Yeah.
Anytime I have like a negative thought or something, I catch myself and I'm like, why is that my thought? Why? Okay. What am I feeling that's causing that? Or like in a relationship where it's like all of a sudden, you know, I'm so much less jealous than I used to be. When I was young, I was just like and now it's like, okay, worst case scenario, if someone cheats on you, if someone has a relationship with someone else, well, yes, it's painful, but what is that inside of me that hurts about it? It's my ego. It's my huge, gigantic ego. And why is that so important to me? Like, these are the things that I like scrutinize myself in a way with these questions anytime I'm feeling something like, oh, I don't like that. Okay, why am I doing that?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think what I just take a little that doesn't sit right with me.
I was like, back to the word mystical that you
back
used.
to you saying waste your time making things up. I have an issue with that because it's not a waste of time to look outside of yourself and to look at the actual tangible energy and celestial bodies and the universe and to try to understand and grow spiritually. I think that's really the
I'm
only
100% open
purpose.
But I don't find the energy is absolutely tangible.
Just saying like I'm never gonna know. It's like you're holding yourself stagnant, and you even say you think you're a god. Your God's inside you. So it's like, why are you saying that you're such a limited being? You don't want to know.
And I'm not.
You don't want to seek.
I think everyone's their own god, not that I'm the god. Okay.
I know.
Let's not get it twisted.
That's
Layne
what I'm
thinks
saying,
he's God.
though. You have infinite possibilities within you. So why are you, you're limiting yourself and your growth and your perspective.
Maybe I am a bit, but I just always.
Is it a control thing?
It's a scientific thing for me. It's like.
But science is inquiry.
As much
the
as
root of science is inquiry.
Yeah.
That's the whole. I love science.
As much as I want
science
to,
is trying to understand the world around us as well.
There's something about me. As soon as I start thinking about those possibilities, I always snap back into science, evidence.
But okay, so evidence is different. The scientific inquiry, right, is to continually ask questions and to push the boundary and to ask more and more questions. What you're saying is you don't have tangible proof.
Right.
And so you're saying it's a defensive, I'm not judging, but it's a defensive way to exist in the world. I need proof, which is not, it's just not in the heart. But like, what makes you fall in love with someone?
That's a tough question.
You might not even be able to perceive.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's like
you guys are gonna laugh at me, but I'm gonna say their energy.
Yeah,
like,
right. So it's not a tangible thing. Love is not a tangible.
Yeah.
I mean, we show up in loving through acts of service, through care, through communication style, but falling in love with someone, it's the most irrational thing on the planet.
Right. Yeah. I mean, you're absolutely right.
But what are we without that? What are we without love? I don't mean just romantic love. I also, love of, platonic love of a creative expression.
Yeah, and I'm a creative person, so that's why, I don't know. I guess I'm a complex human being.
Yes, we all are.
And you only have 5 senses. You might not even be able to, at this level of what we've evolved to at this point, even perceive the hardcore evidence that we
And
may
she also Ashley thinks I'm a medium as well. She really thinks
I think
I am.
you're sensitive to energy.
Yeah.
I really am though.
And
So-
that we went ghost hunting. And
Did you?
we went to a haunted place, and Layne, the skeptic out of the group, felt things, was saying things about like what was there, and then he's like, "Oh no, it's not. It's nothing."
Maybe it is a defense mechanism. You might be right,
he
Danielle.
was saying crazier things than I've ever said.
Because I do feel things, but then just my brain wants me to snap back into like the confinement of science.
I honestly think human existence is like a journey of remembering and forgetting. So it's like we forget that we are, spiritual beings, right? And then we remember, and then we forget, and then we remember. So I think it's more about just thinking, not even thinking, but resonating at the heart and an energetic level. Because the truth is, our minds will never comprehend that we are like stuck to this green and blue ball circling through the world.
Right.
And like try and understand that as far as we know, space doesn't end. Like it's so perplexing. It's like, I don't understand. What is that? We're never going to understand it.
Yeah.
When I was a kid, I used to like keep my mom up at night, my poor mother. But like, because I would ask these questions as kids do. They're
totally.
like, by the way, why are we here?
And what is this?
Yeah, by the way, what is all of this?
What
But
would
you
she
were
say?
smart, inquiring kid, because not all kids are like candy.
I guess.
Super
but
Mario Brothers.
Oh my God, I would drive myself crazy. And I already have trouble sleeping. So I would be up in the middle of the night going over this and going over that and just like can't figure it out. And I'm like waking up my mom, and my poor mom's trying to sleep. And she's like, Mom, listen, I can't figure out the meaning of life. Why are we here?
You're like 5.
Can you talk to me? Can you just talk about it? And my mom's just like, listen, like, just gotta enjoy this while we're here. Like, what do you say to a kid? But I remember I would go insane. I would go insane. And then one day it was just like, all right, well, okay.
You're not
I have
gonna
to live my life.
I'm never gonna know.
I'm never gonna know, and I have to sleep. Like,
Yes.
I used to have self-reflective moments as a kid, like literally looking at my, like I'm like, what is this? Like, what is this?
Yes.
Yeah.
What is this? Like, and I would like freak
matter.
myself out. I know exactly
Yeah.
the feeling that you're talking about.
Yeah. And like, oh, you're telling me that like we're all gonna die one day?
Yeah.
Like you and Dad you guys are gonna die. I'm gonna die. I
had-
don't feel great
I
right
went through,
now.
I went through a phase. I went through a phase where it was actually fairly recently. It was when I was in college, where I had anxiety about like thinking about the world without me. Like I'm gonna die and it's gonna be over. And like, what is everything around me?
Yeah. What's
the point?
That's an ego death.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. And I think my ego kind of died when I started to accept it in a way.
Yeah. I think that it can be so overwhelming, right? And so I think it's just continuing on the journey of saying, yeah, I know that this is a process, because essentially life is a process in letting go.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's a process in letting go.
I've learned that for sure.
Yeah. And you'll continue to learn it. It's just the way it goes, right? But there's an openness that can come with that, and a kind of peacefulness that can come with it.
Definitely.
What is your take on reincarnation?
I believe in it. I have doubts. I think faith and doubt are interwoven, but I do believe that we come back. There's a crazy book called Journey of Souls. Have you read it?
No, I've read Many Souls, Many Masters.
Yeah, so
and,
it's kind of like that. It like through hypnosis,
Journey
they
of
recorded, basically what happens between. It's kind of like the movie Soul. Did you see Pixar's
Yeah.
Soul?
We talk about that a
Yeah.
lot.
Yeah, Layne mentions that one a lot.
I love that movie.
Yeah,
It was great.
that movie is so profound, and it's
Yeah.
really about having right. It's not about the success it's about the presence, right? And I love that it was set in New York. Like I just love that.
Yeah.
Because New York is so alive in that way, right? But I think that's what I believe. Do I have moments of doubt about it? Sure,
I think
lot.
It's impossible to say like this is what it is. It's a
don't
journey
know.
of exploration, right?
Yeah. But I've had that feeling. Yeah, like I said, as a little girl, like where'd I get that from? I was specifically obsessed with the American South during antebellum American South. Obsessed.
I've been obsessed with ancient Egypt since I was a kid. Can't explain it.
Interesting.
It's a lot of children, and then there's children who remember past lives and tell extravagant stories.
What are you obsessed with, Layne?
I honestly forget what I was as a child obsessed with. Maybe like medieval knights or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
Perhaps I was a knight.
I was obsessed with the Titanic.
Really?
I take out books on the Titanic, like the same book, like because my library only had like 3 or 4 books on the Titanic, and I would stare at the pictures.
I find that interesting. I didn't care about the Titanic at all.
I did. I have that. I still have that. Like even I think 2 months ago, I was like, I need to rewatch Titanic, and then I was like reading all the survival story. I felt very, but I don't know if for me that was just more macabre. Like when but the Titanic is
fascinating.
It's and
Yeah. I wonder how astrology could intertwine with past life theory.
Well, it does. Like the idea that our souls come here and we come with certain lessons that we've learned and certain lessons that we're meant to learn that can be evidenced in the nodes. There's also the idea of sacred or soul contracts, right? So there are different, like, why do you feel like, I feel like I've known you before, but I've never met you, right? So there's that element as well. I think that you're never going to get proof on it. I mean, you may get close to proof, but you're never going to get proof. But I think to be skeptic, I think there's a healthy part of being skeptic. I really do. But I think there's a way in which it can be a protection or a self-defense mechanism. Like all things, they're nuanced and textured, right? Mm-hmm. So it's like, what is the fear? Like, what if it is true? If it is true, what does that say about me?
I guess it's kind of easy to be skeptical in a way, is what I'm finding through this discussion. And maybe I need to take the more difficult route sometimes.
Yeah.
Aww.
Ashley loves that. Wow.
Okay, real quick, Sarah, can I grab this?
Oh, yes.
Okay.
This is your chart.
So this is my chart. I got a reading. I'm not going to ask you to like read it, but I don't know what this means. Like I had a reading. I kind of forgot what was said. There's degrees on here and symbols and like really specific. And it's like, what does this mean? Can you just like give a little bit? I'm not going to ask you what it means. I'm actually going to ask you what it is. The symbols and the degrees and like, what is that? Like,
so just decode the chart, basically.
It looks like, see the progress chart.
Yeah. So that's my when and where and everything I was born. And there's different.
We have the same birthday.
Same Virgo?
No way.
September 18th. But I'm 1980.
It's my goddaughter's birthday too.
I love Virgos.
You know, it's Greta Garbo's birthday. And Samuel Johnson, who created the dictionary.
Wow.
It's my goddaughter's birthday too.
Great company. I thought you were going to say Samuel L. Jackson. I was like,
I did too. Let me get my Kangol out.
Honestly, wouldn't be a bad person to share.
I know. I love that.
Tired of these snakes on his.
So he, he was saying stuff about 7 years and this and that.
Yes.
And
so let's just take this here.
The inner circle.
Right? The inner circle, right? So this is the rising sign.
Okay.
This is the descendant. So think of it as like the front. So this is what I present in the world. The 7th is what you project onto others in intimate relationship, or how the kind of people that you draw in an intimate relationship, right? So
why is it broken up into that many sections?
So these are called the houses.
Okay.
So houses, like I said earlier, represent different aspects of our life. And then, like I said, there's 10 main celestial bodies.
So what does a rising sign and a moon sign mean?
The rising sign is the conditioned mass, like I talk about. The moon is the emotional landscape.
Okay.
So you have a Virgo sun and a Gemini moon, which means you're double influenced by Mercury. So
retrograde is not good for you, Ashley.
But the rising sign is really important because the rising sign sets what our chart ruler is. So, I mean,
is it Sagittarius?
Yeah, it looks like it's Sag there, and then that's Gemini, which makes sense. They're always opposite, right? So if you're Sag rising, that means that Jupiter is your chart ruler. And you have Jupiter in Libra, which means you grow through partnership, and partnership is really significant for you.
That's so weird because that was the card I pulled. Creative.
Yeah, you're right. Partnerships. You're right.
But basically, so let's say you have a lot of 9th house energy.
So what's the 9th house?
9th house is actually likened to Sagittarius. So
Okay.
philosophical, kind of looking at the higher perspective. It can be Sagittarius and the 9th house are related to law. Not so much like the scales of law, that's more Libra, but more like the concept of justice. So 9th house energy is kind of esoteric terminology, and then the institutions are kind of around it, right? So love, religion, right? In theory, religions are just containers for love. They've become not necessarily that, but that's what it is, right? So 9th house is highly philosophical. It's the higher mind.
I mean,
Yeah, interested in
cosmos.
foreign travel. So,
So how many houses are there?
12.
Oh, okay, the signs.
Yes.
The zodiac
And they
signs
kind of-
are the houses.
Yes, but the houses are 1 through 12.
Makes me think of Harry Potter.
I was just
Sorry.
going to say, I'm in Gryffindor. Still going to say that. Totally. And so, for example, looks like you have your moon in the 6th house, which means that you are driven, like you have a need to serve in some way. You have a need to better your environment, but you're going to come at it. You have a strong intellect. You actually have a strong intellect and a way of kind of perceiving, but you need to be able to converse in partnership. You need to converse.
I could hear. I see that.
I see it too.
Your sun is sandwiched between Mercury and Jupiter, which means that you are meant to share information on a larger stage.
Okay, that's what he said. I feel the need to share information.
Yes. So I was reading your, this is your progress. This is your, and you're upcoming on your Saturn. You're in the middle of your Saturn return right now because your Saturn's at 12 degrees Aquarius.
So what does that mean? I was like asleep for like it was like not.
You weren't asleep. When
not
were you asleep?
Not asleep, but like it wasn't
Dormant.
Yeah, it was dormant.
No, it was moving through the zodiac, and what Saturn return is Saturn returns to the point it was at your birth.
Okay.
So it's a kind of maturation or responsibility. But Saturn transits actually line up with psychological development. So they happen, every major Saturn transits happen once every 7 years. So when we're 7 years old, right, we start to separate from our parents. There's that first kind of real individuation. We're in first grade. We kind of are starting, our psychologists will say that our kind of core personality is developed. 14, 7 years later, kind of we're in adolescence. That's that first rebellion, right? 21, we're in college. By 28, it's like we're an adult in the world.
Right.
So that's the Saturn return. It's like you can, it's like, what do you want your life to be about? It's no longer about, the family or the tribe necessarily that you come from, though it can be. And it's like, what are you choosing into? And it's really about taking on responsibility.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Can't this chart be a bit limiting considering there are other galaxies that we know about as well? So
Sure.
why are we
I didn't
only
even think about
why
that.
are we only relying on the planets that we know about?
Because we're
we
in
can see
this
them.
solar
Yeah.
system, in this galaxy.
That's a great question, though.
Yeah.
And
Other-
maybe we'll discover more.
And maybe it'll continue to grow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know the saying, a butterfly bats their wing in Alaska, it affects you and whatever.
I've never heard that.
Yeah,
But
I just made it.
what are you
something
talking
something could be happening in another galaxy
Yeah.
that's in turn affecting the energy in this solar system
yeah,
potentially.
because it's all interrelated.
Could be. You can't rule it out. Is just
No.
all I'm saying.
Okay.
No.
Hey. See, I'm open. That's why I'm trying to understand if we can expand this chart even more.
Does anyone have any questions?
Is this live on TikTok?
Yeah. We've been
Wow.
live the whole time.
Oh my God.
There's astrology TikTok. Like
Is there?
yeah,
Yeah.
there's people on there talking about, oh my God, there's a whole group of people on
Yeah.
TikTok that think that they can
He's looking at it.
it's called they switch or something, and they basically lucid dream, and they decide what they're going to dream about, and they say that they enter a new reality.
Yeah. People lucid dream. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wait, on TikTok?
But it's a trend on TikTok. Yeah.
Isn't
What do you mean
everything a
it's a
trend
trend?
on TikTok?
Yes.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
Like,
There's a TikTok for everything.
Yeah, you
for
like punch your
everyone.
grandma in the face. Yeah.
It's just everything.
Punch your grandma in the face.
Yeah, that's a TikTok trend.
Wow.
Oh my God.
wait, that's so mean.
No, I'm
Okay.
kidding. It's not a real thing.
Oh my God.
It is now. Guys,
Don't do it. Don't do that.
Do they know what I'm talking about? The switching thing where they
wait, say it again.
oh my gosh. It's like
It's lucid. I mean, I know what lucid dreaming
Yeah.
is. Lucid dreaming is when you consciously kind of
Decide how you're going to
Yeah.
dream, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You can astral project too.
Oh, okay.
Wow.
What is that?
When you go into other realms.
Like what? What's the other
Another
realm?
dimension, you
Yeah.
mean? Through meditation?
I mean,
So you're big on meditation, right?
I am. I mean, I had a near-death experience in 2016. My car flipped 4 times on
Oh
the
my
101 near
God.
Monterey.
That's horrible.
Yeah, it was pretty intense. But I lost consciousness, but I went somewhere and I didn't have a scratch on me. And you should see the car. Like, it makes no sense.
Wow.
Where did you go?
Well, the craziest
your-
thing that I had planned a month-long retreat in Northern California for myself to rebirth. And this happened on day 1, driving up there. And what I remember is like intense kind of pastels and kind of just like this white light. In all truth, that's all I remember. But I've had separate shamans say to me that the plan was to go. So this is September of 2016. The plan was to go, which is interesting because I always thought I would die young. And I'm not reckless. Like, I'm not a drinker, never did drugs, not like I never put myself in, but I was like, I just feel like the plan was to go. But then I realized how crazy the world was going to be and I wanted to be around for it. And that was 2 months before Trump became president. Whatever you think of Trump, like the world has, and it's gotten increasingly crazier.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm like, I guess I wanted to stick around for it.
Did the shamans say why you chose to stay?
Just that I wanted to be able to experience it and be present for it. And I wanted to live a life of creative freedom. And I felt I'd never actually been in love. And I really wanted to have the experience of true love. And I'm going to get emotional. 6 months to the day after that, my partner walked up to me at Rose Cafe.
Wow.
Yeah. And someone I would have never he's very handsome and very beautiful. And I was just never attracted to men my own age, never attracted to creatives, never attracted, like, it just totally did a 180.
Wow.
And he's literally changed my life and my worldview.
That car crash changed everything.
It changed everything. Like my friend jokes, take the 101 to like the life change. Yeah, it really did. It really did. It really did.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's incredible.
Yeah, I've had an interesting, this is kind of revealing, but an interesting relationship to death since, because I actually became more afraid of it after, because I started to actually invest in things in my life. Before that, I was kind of floaty. I was like just meditating all the time. I was like, whatever. And like, I've deeply invested and I'm like, I'm not ready to go. I'm not ready to go. I want to be here.
Yeah.
So it's like, I got a second chance and like, now I really want to be here.
Yeah, that's my mindset as well. And I had a shift as well. Like my brain started changing when I was in college and I went through a lot of mental illness.
Yeah.
And after that, I feel the same way as you.
Yeah.
That was kind of my like car crash, was going through all that.
Yeah.
And now I feel a little more scared to die because I have so much to live for.
It's interesting not to do this kind of publicly, and we don't have to, but if you experience that and now you have kind of fear around going into other realms, it could be, are you going to lose touch with reality in a way that can bring up maybe some trauma that you had around that time?
Right. Yeah.
Like it may be
That's
related,
interesting.
There may be a way in which you're holding, if I go down this path, am I going to lose touch with, I don't know what you experience, but am I going to lose touch with reality? And is reality, physical world reality? I can touch this. I can,
Yeah, possibly.
We do have a
Okay,
question
yeah.
from TikTok. Curious what your go-to argument/perspective is when coming across skeptics of astrology.
I actually all due respect, I don't have an interest in like converting people.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not here to proselytize. I'm not evangelical. It's a tool, give it a shot. I do work with a lot of people. A lot of people send their skeptical partners to me because I have a very grounded approach. But I'm not, believe whatever you want to believe,
Yeah. Yeah.
It-
That makes total sense. It's
it's-
like not your job.
No, and it's also like, there's no satisfaction. There's no winning. I'm not interested in winning. I'm just interested in holding a safe, sacred place for people. That's, so if it makes them feel unsafe to explore this, I understand that and I respect that.
That's awesome. And to people that are open to it and go to you, and you're a helpful tool and to explore that stuff.
Yeah. And I work from all people, all walks of life, religions, ethnicity. I have 2 camps that I tend to work with the most for some reason, which is lawyers and actors.
Well, LA for you.
Yes. But I have clients all over the globe. And then a lot of people who grew up in very religious upbringings, which is interesting because I didn't. But I did grow up in a, as we all do, a kind of tribal mentality. And once you just see that all people grow up in some kind of tribal mentality, it's a very neutral way to perceive it, right? I do take cultural, social context into my readings, very much so, because it's not just all energy is neutral to directed. But if someone is raised in Nigeria, they're going to have a different experience than someone raised in the Czech Republic.
If you have anything else you want to share about what you offer on your website, and you have like a subscription, right?
I do. Well, I have a membership. So a big tenet of my work, or a big belief that I have, is following the moon cycles. Just starting as simply as just noticing the cycles of the moon to connect with the earth and the natural cycles. And new moons are times of planting seeds, and full moons are ones of awareness and illumination. So my membership is all about kind of tracking those cycles. Really simple, but really deep and profound work. And it also includes all my intro courses and then a monthly call, which is basically just like community sharing and, again, a sacred space. That is always my intention, a sacred space.
Danielle, thank you so much for being here.
me.
It was truly a pleasure. Your energy is really great.
Oh, thank you so much for having me.
For sure.
It really, it meant a lot. Thank you.
Definitely.
You guys are great.
Thank you guys.
Yeah.
Thank you guys for listening, watching, liking, subscribing. Check out Danielle, her website, daniellebeinstein.com.
Yep.
And we'll see you next time.
Bye.
Bye.